Right, for those of you in the room that don't know me, my name is Mac McCarley, and I am a member of a tri-services organisation that fly online, that simulate the RAF, the Army and the Navy. And today what I intend to talk to you about is formation flying and how we achieve that. Really what my aims and objectives today is to teach you different ways in which that can be achieved in the flight simulator environment, and be that with FSX or FS9. Be that flying online with outfits such as ourselves, as Ian's already said, he's got the VRAF guys as well, and offline on your own, how you can practice on your own to sharpen up your skills. So that's really what I want to talk to you about today. I did have a PowerPoint presentation for you, however, I felt that most people have been in this room all day, so we're going to keep it quite light-hearted for the end of the day and just talk things through. We've got some videos to show you. We'll start off with a very, very small one, if we could, Keith, this is 659 Squadron, which is the Army Air Corps side of our organisation, with just a little bit of a video that one of our guys has made on the helicopter side of life. And we'll give you a quick show of this, and just to see what is possible and what we can do. Towards the end, we're also going to give you a guy that was with our organisation for quite some time, actually put together a full Red Arrows performance, which we're going to show you at the end of this lecture, to show you what can be achieved with a bit of dedication and the right equipment. Good. Go for it, Keith. I don't know how's the sound. You might have to turn the sound up on the old laptop. Is it doing it? If you can find it. Is it on? No. You have to excuse the incredibly cheesy music. Okay, it's a very short video, but what you do get a feel for is just what is possible, and this is using FSX, Flight Simulator 10 from Microsoft. Are you an FSX or an FS9 user? FS9? No, there's nothing to be afraid about. I mean, that can actually give you better stability sometimes, and certainly when it comes to formation flying. So the general idea is just a quick insight of the helicopters, now close you can get them, what you can do with them. You'll notice anybody that's actually got any flight sim acronym behind them and actually flown in formation, you'll notice there that, does anybody here use FSIN on their servers when they fly? So I know you do, Ian. You don't actually fly that, right, okay. FSIN, I'm sure you've seen this as well, certainly with the VC-10s, there's a real problem, and that is the fact that when you come up to do air-to-air refuelling or tornadoes zapping along at 460 knots, you can get a discrepancy when you look back at the aircraft. So for instance, you've got a guy who's sitting there in a VC-10, and you've got the guys in the tornadoes coming up wanting to get onto the back of the nozzles, and we're going, well, I'm on the nozzle, and Barry, who's not with us at the moment, but Barry, who's one of our VC-10 pilots, will turn around and say, well, no, I'm seeing you 1.1 miles behind me. So there's this slight difference in what you see on the flight simulator compared to what you're actually seeing individually per pilot. And what we found with that is it varies over how can you then make a formation flight right if you're going to have this inconsistency where I feel like I'm a mile and a half, I'm 1.1 mile behind, when actually I'm seeing the view of being right on this guy. Yeah. And the problem we've seen with that is generally quite speed orientated, believe it or not. So you'll notice with the thank you, Mark. You'll notice with the helicopter side of life, we can actually get pretty darn close and stay in formation, doing our flying and whatever we want. Now, we've even noticed up to about 100 knots, you will see a difference of approximately 0.3 of a mile between what I'm seeing if I was in that rear helicopter in the links there, compared to what the guy in the front's seeing. Okay. Now, where that comes in on FSIN is really a compatibility. As you know, we've got people that fly FS9 and FSX. There were problems with FSIN, and the details of which I don't intend to go into too much today because it's a bit techie, but there were problems with what we call the peer-to-peer settings in FSIN. They lost DNS servers and things like this, and it caused problems. And as of yet, we have not found a suitable replacement for FSIN. But Adam's done some work and found that there are ways you can set up your routers to take that problem away. But it does mean that all of your members, especially for yourself, Ian, would have to sit down and understand what ports need to be opened, how to open them, which I'm sure being in charge of an organisation like us, we were very of the effect of, well, we're quite happy to tell you what ports you need to open. What we're not willing to do is actually go in and do that port opening for you, because there's all kinds of litigious problems that could cause. So from an FSIN point of view, when you're bringing FSX and FS9 together, the incompatibility, if you like, between the two different languages they talk over multiplayer can cause this problem. And as of yet, I don't have an answer how you can easily rectify that. However, there is some good news behind the bad news, and the good news is we've tested this with the FSX in multiplayer, and what we found is we don't get any of those issues. I can literally sit on a I've done it, in a Typhoon, off of another person's wing, literally 2 foot, and I can be steady on it, keeping the speeds right, maintaining the same speed, same altitudes, and keeping everything right on. I've done it with AAR as well. There's a KC-135 that we're using on a Vietnam op we're doing at the moment. I actually took an FS recording of that, played it back, and went up and did it that way. That worked very well, which I expected. And then we did it over multiplayer with another friend of mine and said, can you go up in it and I'll come and refuel. Then we did it on FSN, and that was when we got the incompatibility. So when it comes to formation flying, you've got to take those points into consideration. Number one, am I doing formation flying on my own? Which sounds really mad, because you think, well, formation flying on my own is not going to be much fun. It actually can be, believe it or not. There's two ways of achieving that. Number one is you've got AI traffic, obviously in FSX and FS9. You can put your sliders up, you can have some AI traffic, and you can go and practice with that AI traffic. Okay, so you can go up behind, you know, if you want to go up in a little 172 and sneak up behind another 172 and actually practice just keeping straight and level with another aircraft before you even think about doing all your online shenanigans with all these mad people. You know, you can do that and you can practice on your own. Now, admittedly, they will only turn on set routes because they're AI traffic, so it's not going to be the most interesting of formation flights. But what it does do is give you that ability and feeling of, number one, not having to worry about technical issues over a multiplayer connection, be it FSX to FSX or using FSIN. You can actually practice on your own. Okay. The main techniques on practicing when you're doing stuff like this, certainly on your own before you join, or if you're already a member of a VA and you want to actually move into a position of becoming in a formation flying squad, let's say, I would always recommend you do it on your own first, because that is the less lag situation you are ever going to be in, is your computer showing a model to your computer, and it's only talking to your computer. So that is the best you will ever get your formation flying. Okay. Moving on from that, so once we've gone up and we've had a few sessions in a Beaver, you know, get yourself used to, first of all, lead aircraft. So what do I want to do? Well, first of all, I want to be able to join that distance, and what I would suggest you start at is about a mile. So if you put you all know how to put on your red labels on FSX and FS9. Do you know how to do that? Yeah? No? No, no, yes? So you don't know how to put the labels on to see your distances from other aircraft? Oh, yeah. Yep, so you press the Shift ZZ keys and you can then see the distances to other aircraft. Now, obviously, when you're doing it in a situation in an organisation with these guys that I fly with regularly, we've done it long enough to know what the distances are, and we don't need those red labels on there. And they're a bit, to be honest with you, not real world. It would be done visually. However, for training purposes, quite important actually that you practice these skills on your own. And what I'd recommend you do is quite simple. Turn on your AI traffic to about 10%. FSX will give you a reasonable amount of AI traffic at 10%, bearing in mind that every time you run another AI aircraft, you are taking processing power from your computer. I had somebody once that turned around to me and said, well, I've got real problems with my computer. I don't understand why. It was a reasonably pokey computer. I don't understand why I'm having these computer problems, Mac. Everything's a bit juddery. When does it happen in? Normally when I fly over London and I've got my road vehicle set to 100%, was the answer I received. There's your problem. Everything that's moving is taking up processing power on your computer. So if you want good formation flights, number one, go high, less drawing of the scenery on the bottom, less processing power, less jitter, more smooth. Okay. Number two on that is, as I say, get yourself into a position where you've got your red labels on and you can actually move to about 1 mile line of stern. So we're directly behind the aircraft in front of us, 1 mile indicated. Okay. And then what you want to be doing is just increasing your speed, okay, to about 15 knots of the aircraft in front of you. And people go, well, I don't know what the speed of the aircraft in front of me is at. Well, when you're practicing on your own, there's two ways you can identify that. Number one would be what we call sight picture. My sight picture is that aircraft is moving towards me. Therefore, the laws of averages say I must be moving towards it, which means my speed is more than its speed is. If I'm moving backwards and the aircraft's getting smaller and my label distance is getting longer, obviously need to increase that speed. Yep. So we can practice by doing that, and then what we want to actually do is get used to bringing ourselves in a position where we can go from 1 mile quite comfortably behind another aircraft, okay, and then shorten that to 0.5 of a mile. And then once we've got it to 0.5 of a mile, we want to start pulling it into 0.2 of a mile. Okay, now I don't know how many of you were watching the actual video there. 0.2 of a mile was about the shot, you know, when you saw the two lynxes coming in, the lynx was coming down to land. Okay, that was about 0.2 of a mile, so it's pretty darn close. If you actually go outside on 0.2 of a mile and have a look, it looks quite a distance in FSX, but actually that's pretty close. Okay, you can get closer than that in an FSX to FSX multiplayer solution, or FS9 to FS9 multiplayer solution. You can get closer than that, and it will maintain with good frames, and you'll both be seeing the same thing. Okay, so when we start using FSIN and other cross-references between both operating systems, that we get the problem. So let's presume we're on our own and we're just practicing with AI traffic at the moment. We know how to get from 1 mile, we can put it into 0.5 of a mile and then into 0.2 of a mile. And that's just straight line stuff. So that's your very, very basic formation flying. And you need to feel comfortable that you understand how to keep that sight picture correct before you start deviating out to echelon left, echelon right. So do we all understand what I'm saying when I say echelon left and echelon right? Yep, so we're talking about thanks Keith, love you. If I'm saying echelon left and echelon right of the airfield, of the aircraft, what I'm actually saying is, so I have my lead aircraft here, yep. Echelon left would be slightly to the rear. If you're in a helicopter, it would actually be slightly lower than the one in front of you. Okay, obviously, what's the reason for that, Nigel? Being one of my helicopter pilots? Air turbulence. Okay, for a rotary, we do not want that horrible air coming down and slapping me out of the sky. So I'd either go a little bit low or a little bit higher. Okay, so that's echelon left, echelon right. Okay, so again, you can practice this on your own quite simply by keeping your right-hand window of the aircraft, keeping a sight picture of the aircraft that's approaching with the labels on. Again, I would suggest that if you can nail it at 0.5 to start with after you've done your 1 mile to 0.5 to 0.2, I'd suggest trialling it at 0.5, pulling in 0.4, 0.3, 0.2, okay? And always keep that sight picture so that the other aircraft is very much in. If I'm looking out straight out of my window in 2 halves, I want to be keeping the guy about here in my right-hand window if I'm going into echelon left, and exactly the same for echelon right, okay? Now, a couple of things that people tend to get wrong with this is they will come in, and we get it with a lot of new students when we're taking them around Valley in the fast jets. You'll see a lot of new students will try and correct their attitude of the aircraft, okay, rather than their speed at the same time. So what happens to an aircraft, and we'll do some questions because I don't like doing all the talking, so we'll start off with the man at the back there. What's your name, sir? Derek. Derek, Mac, pleased to meet you. Okay, so in an aircraft, if I'm coming into a formation and I'm low, and this guy here, he's got 350 knots on, okay, and he's flying straight at level at 20,000 feet, and I'm low and I can see that he's pulling away from me, what do I need to do to adjust?
Well, speed for a start.
So speed, because I'm pulling back, aren't I? So I need to raise my speed.
And also you need to climb.
And I need to raise my attitude. Okay, so if I raise my speed to close, yeah, and then I raise my attitude, what happens to my airspeed when I raise my nose?
You're going to fall in it.
My airspeed's coming down, and that's what we find people do wrong. They tend to come in and they will go, right, airspeed on, so I'm getting closer, and now I'm going to go up, but now I'm not catching him, and I don't understand why I'm not catching him. Well, of course, we are, unfortunately, even though E equals MC squared has been proved to be wrong, there are still gravitational laws that we have to abide to, okay? And those gravitational laws say the more drag I get, yeah, on the aircraft, the less airspeed I am going to have on the aircraft until I apply more thrust. So to do that, you'd over thrust slightly, okay, to allow for that rise to get up where you should be and then into position. All right, I personally, what I tend to do is, and I don't know, I'm sure the other guys here can shed some light on how they personally do it. What I personally tend to do is, when I'm coming into a formation, I'll get to that 0.5, okay, and I'll get to the height that I want to be at. Then I know I'm at 0.5 at the height I need to be at, and then the only thing I need to worry about to pull into formation is my speed. Whereas if I'm low and trying to increase my speed and my attitude, I'm making life very complicated for myself. So think of it in stages, okay? Really try and get your mindset so that when you're pulling that aircraft in, you are pulling it in, I know I'm at the right level, now all I have to worry about is my speed. Otherwise, if I adjust my attitude up or down, I'm going to speed up or slow down. and that is not going to give me the desired effect of getting into formation correctly. And we get a lot of it. Nigel's one of my guys who's doing the AAC Sim OCU on the Apache, and I'm sure Nigel will tell you, it's a tricky thing. You think it's hard doing it in a VC-10 with a Tornado doing a refuel? Try doing it in helicopters. Very, very difficult, okay? And Nigel will vouch for me, okay? It took him a long time to get through his course, same as it did with me. Helicopters are a slightly different beast because, of course, in a helicopter, my speed isn't just controlled by my collective, is it? It's controlled by my attitude as well. So I've got almost 3 things to be thinking about. But from a plane point of view, if you can get your height where their height is, and then increase your speed, you will come into position or into formation quite correctly, all right? And then it's a case of when I start getting to that point 2, point 1 in some cases, and as you'll see from a video we're going to show you very shortly, point 1 is possible, all right? And sustainable as well, if you know what you're doing, okay? And what you'll find is, if you manage your attitude and your speed well at those, and your flight lead is verbally proficient, is the word I'll use on this. A good example of this. Anybody listen to the Red Arrows when they've gone up to Waddington or to the places, got the old radio scanner out? You ever listen to those guys? Okay, well their pitch of voice is something to the effect is, brake right, go! Okay, it's very sharp, very on it, bang, bang, bang. Now your flight lead is going to dictate how good your formation flying is, okay? And it's done through good comms. And the way you do that is, there is absolutely no point asking you to fly up and get into echelon right of my position if you don't know my speed and altitude, is there? Because you're going to be fighting all the way. You've got no reference point to that. So it's absolutely quintessential that your flight lead is talking to you regularly, clearly. You know, the old army, in the army we used to call it FBID, yeah? You give your orders full, FBID, well I'm going mad, full, brief, individual or delayed, okay? You can't have any of that, it's got to be full, all right? So it would be flight lead to 2, okay? So I'd suggest if you're doing this for the first time and you're doing it with a friend, it doesn't have to be quite as complicated as we do it, but you can quite simply see lead aircraft 1, next guy 2, next guy 3, okay? Flight lead to aircraft 2, currently maintaining 2,400 feet, and flight level, 2,400 feet with an airspeed of 300 knots. 2, closing. So he's closing, yeah? He knows where he is, height, I know where I've got to be, and I know what my speed's got to be. He'll tell you he's closing nice and gently, and then he'll say 2, in, okay? And he's in formation. Now, we don't always get it right, and on Nigel's exam, he doesn't know because he was too busy looking that way. I was behind him and I crashed into a lamppost. And the reason why I did that was, I was in formation, and I was watching the formation, I was doing everything I should have been doing, apart from the one thing everything apart from the one thing I should have been doing, which was watching the back of his aircraft, okay, because he made a tight turn very close to a landmast, which I had installed, and I don't know if Nigel did, and I was so busy watching that landmast and, oh God, I'm going to hit that I was all out of the place and I was all out of formation. By rights, if I call in when I'm in formation, what shall I have called when I'm coming out of formation? So if I've fallen out of formation, what should I say? Don't know. That would work. I don't know, boss, it's all gone wrong. Pete Tom. If I'm going to fall out of formation or out, and we break away from the formation, we come back round and we rejoin. Simple as, okay? You always break away from the formation. If I've got 3 ships and one he's on the right-hand side and he says falling out and goes like that, he's going to wipe out half my flight. All right, so you always break to the outside of your flight. Come away, come round, try again. You will not get this right first time. You won't get it right second time. In fact, you probably won't get it right until about the 15th, 16th attempt, okay? It's not easy. However, if you follow those simple things about keeping your attitude right, your speed right, certainly your closing speed to get into the in position, you're not going to have a problem. Or, well, actually, you will still find it quite demanding, but you won't have the problems of this whole, got to go up, got to go down, speed. Before you know it, you're all over the place, okay? And that's not how you do formation flying. And my understanding of it real world is it's not how it's done. It is done under very, very rigorous conditions where the flight lead has good comms. If you haven't got those good comms, forget it, okay? Okay, so moving on from that, very basic stuff, echelon left, echelon right. I've got 3 aircraft, echelon, flight lead, 1, 2, okay? And we're flying along quite happily, and then we've got to start putting turns in, and then we start going into all this crazy stuff you've seen out here today, yeah, and the red arrows and what they get up to. How that is achieved, certainly in the FSX environment, is a lot of patience, a lot of hard work, and understanding the basics that we've just discussed. Okay, if you can't get those basics right of straight and level, formation, you're never going to get an in-turn formation, you're never going to get, you know, being able to go vertical with jets, you know, 0.2 off the wings. Not going to happen, all right? Really not. And it's all about, as I said before, your sight picture is so important, all right? And so much so, and Keith, I'm sure you'll know more about this than I do, but I was speaking to some of the ground crew and I said to them, how do they do it? You know, how do the Red Arrows do it? Because it's fascinating. And he said, oh, don't kid yourself, there are markers. There are actual markers on the aircraft windscreen where they will get into a certain move and they know exactly where the tip of that aircraft's got to stay. So again, what are we talking about? We're talking about reference points, attitude, speed. How do I keep him at that point? That is exactly how they do it. So in a turn, they know second rivet from the left. If his nose goes second rivet from the left, you know, I need to pull a bit more stick in because he's getting away from me. Yeah, or if he's coming, you know, this side of the second rivet from the left, I need to pull off a bit because otherwise I'm going to overtake him, he's going to undertake me, and you get a mid-air collision. So these are all the things that you want to be looking at. But the thing that I think a lot of people don't understand about formation flying is the basic principles. And the basic principles are you've got to have those reference points, you've got to have that speed right, yeah, and you've got to have your sight picture right, and the attitude of the aircraft. Now, another thing we also see that a lot of the younger lads do, I shouldn't say younger lads, less experienced people do when they're flying, is when they get to that 0.5, and I must admit, I've done this a few times myself as well, you get to that 0.5 and you're closing nicely, yeah, but you're impatient. You think, well, it's going to 0.4 after about, you know, a minute, I can't be bothered with it, I'll just wham the anchors, you know, I'll put a bit of power, we've all done it, yeah, I'll put a bit of power on, I'll catch up. And then you wonder when you straight past him, yeah, because these things are done very slowly. Imagine, if you will, I have a car, which is a great representation of a car, and I don't know what else we use. I have a lighter, excuse my dirty smoking habits, okay? So I have two cars, yep. If I wanted to get this car as close to that one as possible, okay, what would make more sense? Would it make more sense for me to close at 10 miles an hour, then 5 miles an hour, then 4, then 3, then 2, then 1, and be mucking around with that 1, or 50, 40, 1? Yeah, it's a no-brainer, isn't it? Okay, and we see a lot of it. We get a lot of people who are quite simply just go in and they think it's all about getting up to that aircraft as fast as humanly possible. I know, Ian, you must have seen this 100 times as a tanker driver. Okay, fast as humanly possible. Get it up there. You see these tornadoes flaring in behind you, and all of a sudden they can't stop in time, or they're using air brakes and slow themselves down because they've come in that fast. Okay. Stuff like that, you're never going to get it right, guys and girls. You will never, ever get it right unless you understand that you've got to be closing at no more than, if I was going from 0.5 to 0.3, I would not be accelerating any more forward than I would be taxiing on the ground. So we're talking literally a 10 knot difference, 10, 15 knots maximum, absolute maximum, or you are not going to keep in that formation, okay? Another thing we find with formations is frustrations on formation, people trying to do clever formation landings and things like this, okay? It is something that, I'm not sure if it's an inconsistency in both sims, in FS9 and in FSX. I've seen it done well and I've seen it done badly. And what we tend to find on landing when you're trying to do it, certainly with fixed wing, okay, the problems come in is comms, that's all it is. You know, flight lead puts his flaps down, doesn't tell anybody else. Yeah, when he's put his flaps down. So the other guys come stacking in behind him because they have no idea that he's slowing down. So again, that comms comes in, the attitude of the aircraft. Where you're really going to fall over on this if your comms with your buddy, your online or offline buddy that you're flying with, if you're not actually communicating at least in tight formation, I would say what, 5 to 10 seconds? When we're flying, 5 to 10 seconds without me going left, going right, moving, you know, slightly off course. There is nothing wrong with being wrong. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with going, oh, bugger, I'm supposed to keep 270 degrees and I'm at 268. That's 2 degrees, man. If your guy behind you doesn't know that you've gone 2 degrees off, although it is his job to try and keep in formation with you, if you don't verbally tell him that, he's then got another thought process going through his brain, which is taking him away from what he's supposed to be doing, which is pure thought on that formation flight. Yeah? If he gets that wrong, you're never going to get it. You are never going to get that formation landing correct. In fact, you wouldn't even get the getting into formation correct. So it's absolutely got to be that every single one of your flight that is going into any kind of formation manoeuvre must know what his flight lead's thinking, and he must be being spoken to, and must have a number. I've seen some terrible things, radio comms, yeah? You get a guy, okay, 3,200 feet, 320 knots, close in, my echelon right, yeah? Not a word back. So I don't know if 2 got my message. I don't know what speed he's doing. I have no idea where he is coming up to the formation. Could that cause me a problem? Massively, yeah? All of a sudden, ATC comes on, ATC turn around and say, right, we need you to change course. Can you turn left 90 degrees, please? And me, I haven't actually spoken to my echelon right companion or flight number 2. I've just made that turn. But what I didn't know was, because he didn't answer my radio call, he was actually in my left echelon. I've just caused a massive air incident because I just smashed into him in the sim world, which caused me sim dollars, which we never like. All right, so massively important that you're talking, and I find, especially with newbies, and the best bit of advice, I know I'm talking to an old hat here, but the best bit of advice I can honestly give you is to really rattle home the importance of information of attitude, speed, communication. Yeah? If you have not got attitude, speed and communication nailed, you'll never get that formation correctly. But there is another problem there on top of all of this, which is just a slight lag. Okay, doesn't happen in real world for the simple reason being that their radio comms is direct and straight to the ball, and there's no mucking around with internet latency, and you've got 2 meg at home and you've only got 1 meg at home, so there's all these differences that can happen. Now that can cause a massive problem when you're trying to fly, and we've seen it before, especially with the new guy who doesn't want to talk, who doesn't want to communicate. You've really got to encourage him to communicate well and proficiently to maintain that formation flight. If you don't, you might as well hang your boots up straight away. So it really has to be, if you are flight lead, especially if you're in an organisation. Are you guys in an organisation at all? No? No, so you tend to fly on your own, as it were. Okay, well, formation flying with the AI stuff's a lot easier, of course. And something else I'll talk to you in a second about is FS Recorder, which allows you to record an aircraft doing what you want it to do, and then play that aircraft back, and then you can follow it. Yeah, and you can do that multiple times. In fact, we're going to show you a video in a second about it. But certainly in the environment of virtual aviation, or VA or whatever you want to call it, certainly military VAs, if you do not get those comms absolutely nailed as part of your training course for the guys, there's something very wrong and you just will not maintain it. We've got guys, I've flown with Keith, what, 2-3 years now, Keith? Something like that, on and off? Yeah, it's getting on a bit now. I'm getting old at this. I've flown with most of these guys on regular occasions, and I could honestly say that if we were to go into formation for at least the first 3 attempts, until we get our personal comms the way they should be, it's not going to happen. And even guys, Keith flies with another guy called Lawson, flown with him for years and years. They can read each other's minds. They will still communicate and tell each other what they're doing, because if you don't, you're not going to succeed. Okay, and as I say, the red arrows, if you ever get the chance to listen to what the red arrows are saying to each other, please do it. You will be amazed at the amount of communication that goes on. Very loud, very clear. I mean, he's shouting at those boys. Very loud and very clear. Okay, most important. Now, so AI traffic, you can do yourself. Not very interesting, following, the old 747 or whatever it is around the sky, but a bit uninteresting. So what else can you do if you fly on your own is you can actually add in, as we were saying, we can add in other aircraft that you are actually flying and recording and then playing back in FSX. Has anybody got any experience, apart from my boys, because I know you all have, anybody got any experience using that at all? No? Okay. FS Recorder, I believe it comes from fsrecorder.net, if I remember rightly. Google it, FS Recorder, dead easy, Flight Sim Recorder. You can download it and install it. And what you literally do is, you jump into, a good example of this, I did it with a VC10, and we can show you, if you go, can you go onto the RAFSIM website and put those pictures up of the AAR that I did? You can actually get an aircraft, whatever you want it to be, you take it off, you fly it, okay? And then you just press the record button in FSX, and that will allow, or FS9, and it will allow you to record another aircraft that you're flying and then play it back as AI traffic. Now, where does that become quite interesting? Is at the point where, I think it's, sorry, keep going down, I think it's under Rolling Thunder, isn't it? Yeah, I think it'll be back a few pages. What you can do then is, you can then start building up your own personal formation flying video, because you can set position 1 as a red arrow that I'm flying, yeah? And then I can fly after that and re-record myself in position 2. I can then play back both those bits of traffic, then record myself in position 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and so on, okay? Now, where that becomes interesting for you guys that fly on your own is the fact that you are then becoming your own communication tool. You have got to decide, I will be at 250 knots at 3,000 feet, because if I'm not, the next time I take off and I try and fly behind myself, I haven't communicated very well with myself, okay, which is never good. It's not going to work. So you do need to communicate even internally in your own brain. And what I'd suggest is, being someone that's done some smaller videos on AAR and things like that, it's quite important that you write down what you're doing and what you're trying to achieve. So if I want to do a loop-the-loop over the airfield to show off to my mates that I can fly 3, I don't know, Typhoons in formation and do a loop-the-loop, to achieve that, I must know, first of all, when am I going to start pulling up for that loop-the-loop? Exactly where was I in my pitch bars in that loop-the-loop? Yeah? Was I pulling back at 45 degrees? Was I pulling back at 30 degrees? What was my airspeed at the top of that loop-the-loop? Where was my thrust settings? Because if you don't know all of that before you start, you are never going to be able to keep up with yourself. Okay, so these are all important things. Now, FS Recorder is brilliant for this kind of stuff. You can see from this picture here, I think there's one, if you go, I think it's one over from this, where it's actually low and you can see the aircraft approaching. There's one of them. Forward. There you go, beautiful. Okay, so on here you can see we're currently on an operation in Vietnam. So we were doing AAR in Vietnam in the old KC-135s with a probe coming out the back there. And then there's me in the old A6 at the back coming up. Now, what I did with this picture was quite simple. I recorded myself at, I think it was approximately 5,000 feet off the deck. And I put the autopilot on, because that could maintain the speed far better than I ever could. So put the autopilot on and said, right, you're going to sit at 350 knots, 5,000 feet, and I'm going to press record on that aircraft for a minute. So I knew that by the side of Da Nang at 5,000 feet, going at 350 knots, I had a tanker, yeah, with its boom hanging out. So I played that back, and that gave me enough time to get out of Da Nang, get up with my aircraft, and bring myself to what I would. And bearing in mind that this was live, no pausing, I was actually in mid-flight when I took that picture. I'm sure you can appreciate it's not easy to keep it anywhere near that, and I'm sure Ian will agree with me, very hard to do, all right? However, you can see you can get pretty good results by doing that, okay? So for you guys that don't fly with an organisation, which don't listen to what VRAF tell you, well, we're the best. No, if you've ever actually thought about moving forward, and wanting to fly online and learn how to do this stuff with other people, I would really recommend that you come and look at a group like myself or Ian's groups, which are www.rafsim.com, aacsim.com, wrong.net, and faasim.net, where you can come and get involved in a friendly organisation that will teach you all these skills. Okay, but if you want to do it on your own, I would surmise that most people that want to do formation is normally for video work and things like that. Please, please, please write down what you're trying to achieve and how you're going to achieve it, all right? Because you will find, and I found this myself, I've tried to do one myself, it's incredibly difficult and time consuming, okay? So if you don't even know where you're starting from, you're going to have real problems trying to keep in that flight and keep it right. Good. Okay, so what we're going to do now is, just for a minute, I'm going to leave you with a video that I'd like you to watch, which is of an ex-member from RAFSIM who has actually put together a display of the red arrows to show you what is capable, what you can be capable of achieving in Flight Simulator if formation flying is your thing, okay? practice makes perfect. So before we leave, I'd just like to ask, and if one of you don't know it, so help me God, I'm going to cry. Okay, and we will start. So if I'm thinking about formation flying, there's only 3 things I need to know about formation flying. Give me one of those things I need to know about formation flying.
Attitude.
Excellent, good attitude, I like that. Okay, give me, I'm not asking any of you lot, give me another thing that we need. We've had that one. Speed, good man. Speed and comms, yeah. So if you walk away from here learning nothing else, loop the loop, really difficult? Not if you've got attitude right, speed right and comms right. Nigel, I'm about to do a loop the loop. I'm currently at 35,000 feet. All right, that may be a bit too high. I'm currently at 10,000 feet. I will be going through, it'll be a 2,000 foot loop, about 20 to 30 degrees pitch. Okay, I'm going to maintain 300 knots all the way round. Roger, sir, moving to formation in. Thank you, too. Beginning formation manoeuvre loop now. Go! He knows what speed, what attitude he's got to be at. He knows exactly what he's got to do with that aircraft. If he keeps to that and I keep to that, we've got to be right. Yeah? We lose the comms, lose the speed, lose the altitude. Not going to happen. That concludes what I've got to say to you. Thank you very much for your time, which I know is pressing as it gets later. But thank you very much for your time. And if there's any questions, please feel free to ask. If not, I will see you all again soon. Thank you. Cheers.